Welcome. You know, Jason Wright is now the CEO of Calexit LLC. But at one point, he wasn't in any sort of position of power. He was just a dude who showed up to some meetings in the Bay Area. And then he worked on helping the leaders in the Bay Area organize. And then he became a special projects guy. And then he became the Bay Area representative himself. And then he became eventually vice president. And then he became interim president. And then he became CEO. So he has worked his way from the bottom to the top. And one of the things that's happened along the way is that Jason's become very well educated in the laws around secession. And the reason I like to highlight that is that a lot of people see me as the expert. And I have said many times, this movement doesn't work if there's one expert. I have to be obsolete. You all have to have knowledge. And the reason I like talking about Jason is that he proves the point. Jason didn't know international law. He didn't know secession. He didn't know Texas versus Wright. He didn't know the legality of self-determination and all this stuff when he started. Now he's an expert. He's advised foreign governments on this. He's talked to the media with authority on this. How did he get there? Hanging out with us and learning. And that's what I want to point out is that a guy who came with from the bottom and didn't know a lot of the material, worked hard and rose to the top and is now one of the defining experts on knowledge related to self-determination and international law and secession itself. And he did that through hard work. As I've often told Jason, this is the biggest compliment I can give. He works like a Mexican, and I mean it. So Jason Wright, the CEO of Calexit LLC, has been saying something for a long time, that self-determination is the law of America. The UN is a treaty. America signed a treaty forming the UN. In that treaty, it says America must respect the right of self-determination. Treaty law trumps domestic law. Multiple Supreme Court cases have said that. And so it doesn't matter what the Constitution says. It doesn't matter what any American politician says. Once the president signs a treaty with a foreign country, that trumps all domestic law. All domestic law, all Supreme Court cases don't matter at all when you sign a treaty. It's been that way for 200 years, and that has been upheld until very recently. So when America signed the treaty forming the UN, it agreed to self-determination, the right to respect the right of other countries to pursue self-determination. That trumps Texas versus White. That trumps the Constitution allowing secession or not allowing secession. And today, we wanted to show that Jason has been saying this for years. And, I kept asking him, find some evidence, and he would work hard to do that. But we didn't really see anybody say that in the popular press. Well, now that's changed. We have two professors basically backing up what Jason said. We're going to introduce you to them. Dr. Matt Qvortrup from the American University of Rome, and Professor Peter Radan from Macquarie Law School of Australia. Both have said you cannot deny the right of self-determination by the UN treaty. That's basically exactly what Jason Wright, the CEO of Calexit, has said. So I wanted to point out that we have a guy who started with nothing, worked hard, and has learned on the job to the point that he can predict what college professors around the world will say about international law. Not an exaggeration. I'll show you all the evidence in just a second, but first, take a look at this. Well, as I like to do, let's get right to the information so that you can make up your own mind. We like to share the sources with you so that you can... Ooh. Oh, that's interesting. That's new. Here we go. Okay, make sure that's showing. Okay, it's showing. Okay, good. So here are the two things we're going to talk about today. But if we live in a country under the rule of law, due process is a fundamental right. Whether there should be a referendum on independence is a political question. But at the very least, it seems reasonable to determine if such a vote would be legal. To do otherwise would be against the tenor of the doctrine of self-determination, which lies at the heart of U.S. foreign policy. Smoking gun right there. When Ukraine invaded Russia, President Biden supported the Ukrainians' right to self-determination. Dr. Matt Qvortrup, National Divorce of States want to leave. They have the power. We'll show you that in a second. Here's Peter Radan, Arguably one of the world's leading legal scholars, Professor Peter Radan, takes the view that secession is not illegal. The decision in Texas versus Wright only renders unilateral secession illegal and leaves open the door for constitutionally legal secession to take place. Thus, the decision in Texas versus Wright was not a basis to conclude secession was unconstitutional and therefore not a basis upon which the Alaskan Supreme Court could properly rule against holding a popular referendum on the possible secession of Alaska from the United States. And he goes on to explain in this paper because of the right of self-determination. From Peter Radan, an indestructible union of indestructible states, the Supreme Court of the United States and secession. So those are the two key quotes. You're violating the right of self-determination, which lies at the heart of foreign policy, U.S. foreign policy. You cannot say that secession was unconstitutional because places have a right to pursue self-determination. Texas versus Wright basically tacitly argues that by saying that you can have a vote, consent to the states. And what Radan is pointing out here is that the Alaskan Supreme Court struck down a referendum in Alaska to have secession, saying Texas versus Wright said it was unconstitutional. Texas versus Wright did not say secession was unconstitutional. It said unilateral secession was illegal. And it leaves open the door for constitutionally legal secession to take place. So these are the two quotes. These are the two professors backing up the right of self-determination under the law. Peter Radan, Professor Peter Radan, and Dr. Matt Qvortrup. Okay, so let's take a look at who these guys are. So this is Dr. Matt Qvortrup. He's from the American University of Rome, doctorate in politics from Brunson College, Oxford University, University of Law, London, internationally recognized political science with a strong presence in the world of practice, politics, diplomacy, and the media. He's described as the BBC expert, world-leading expert on referendums. So joint editor of the European Political Science Review, Journal of Democracy, European Journal of Political Research and Political Studies, etc. So that's him. Here's Peter Radan, Macquarie University, Sydney, Australia. And here is the research paper. Let me make sure all this is showing. Okay. Research paper by Peter Radan, Legal History 2006, Volume 10, an Indestructible Union of Indestructible States, the Supreme Court of the United States and Secession by Peter Radan, 2006. Here is the article by Matt Qvortrup, National Divorce. If the states want to leave, they have the power. That's what the professor says. And here's where he mentions Peter Radan, who says, actually, Texas versus Wright says secession is legal, and you have the right of self-determination. And then here is Professor Qvortrup mentioning that self-determination is a right that can't be taken away, and that America recently supported this right of self-determination, supporting Ukraine. So there's the article. Here's the other article. Here's the professors. And here is what they said. So, and Jason has been saying this. Texas versus Wright doesn't preclude secession. Why? Because it can't. Because there's a right of self-determination in the UN treaty that America signed. Here's this professor outright saying it, this guy. And here's this professor referencing it, and then he goes into more detail here in this paper. But they're basically saying the same thing. And as we know, the Supreme Court has upheld the right of treaties to trump all domestic law. So that was basically it. We wanted to show you that Jason Wright has, started from the bottom, knowing nothing. Now he's an expert. And then he's been saying something that, other people in the movement were like, yeah, that sounds right, but I'd like to see a little bit more evidence. And he was like, no, I'm sure this is right. And then today or this week, we had two professors come back out and go, oh, yeah, no, he's totally correct. He's been right the whole time. And the point is this: you can learn all the stuff it takes about the legality of secession in California. We have courses, we have videos. You can just watch the videos. You can learn everything. You can become an expert. You don't need us. It's all available for you. Okay, let's take a look at the comments. That's right. Independence is not a what, but a when. Absolutely. Okay, we'll be back with another show in just a second. Stay tuned.